and welcome back to the English Grammar course. This is Marian, and I am delighted to be here with you today. After a review of the possessive form, we will be learning about punctuation. So let's review possessives first. We use possessives to indicate the possessions and relationships between people, animals, places, and things. There are different kinds of possessives: possessive nouns, possessive adjectives, and possessive pronouns. To indicate that something or someone belongs to a person, is connected to a place, or to show the relationship between people, we use apostrophe S. For example, my sister's boyfriend is really nice. To form possessives with plural nouns, we add the apostrophe after the plural S. The football player's coach makes them work hard. There is more than one football player, and the coach belongs to all of them. With irregular plural nouns, we use apostrophe S. The geese's feathers are so white. Geese is the plural form of goose. It is irregular. When a person's name ends with an S, we can either add apostrophe S or simply an apostrophe after the S. Chris's birthday is tomorrow. Chris's birthday is tomorrow. Notice how the pronunciation stays the same. Chris's. When something belongs to more than one person, and we use a list of names, we put apostrophe S on the last name. Lola and Tim's house is really big. Let's practice. Can you rewrite the sentences using the possessive forms? Jordan has a big apartment. Jordan's apartment is big. Your brothers share a bedroom. It's big. Your brother's bedroom is big. My parents have travel plans. They're exciting. My parents' travel plans are exciting. Her children go to school. It's big. Her children's school is big. Travis made a cake. It's delicious. Travis's cake is delicious. Well done. Now let's move on to punctuation. Punctuation is not important in oral English, but incredibly important in both formal and informal written English, and is often misused by both English learners and native speakers alike. Punctuation brings sense, clarity, and stress to sentences. It is essential to organize and structure your writing because we cannot pause and add emphasis as naturally as we would when speaking. Small misuses of punctuation can drastically or completely change the meaning of a sentence. Consider these two examples. A woman without her man is nothing. A woman without her man is nothing. The first sentence indicates that women are dependent on men. The second sentence indicates the complete opposite, that men are dependent on women. See how important punctuation is? So let's get started and study all the most important players in the punctuation game. The most commonly used punctuation is the full stop or period. Period is its American name, and full stop is the British name. We use a full stop or period at the end of a sentence to indicate a finished idea or to break a sentence. For example, she grew up in Alabama in the 1950s. She loved it there. We also use full stops with some abbreviations, like for telling the time the American way. Let's meet at 2 p.m. tomorrow. PM stands for post-meridian. It is the standard way of telling the time in the United States and Canada. Another example, my test is on Jan 4th. Jan is the abbreviation of January. We must place a full stop after the abbreviation to indicate that it is one. Some sentences can be made up of just one word, like interjections, in which case you can end them with a full stop. Hello. Wait. Next, we have the comma. Some people refer to the comma as taking a break because it acts like a pause in a sentence. This is true, but the comma is mainly used to organize blocks of thoughts or groupings of ideas. There are many ways to use commas. First, to separate independent clauses, especially when they are joined by coordinating conjunctions, and, but, so, or, nor, yet, for. For example, I've given her so much love, but she still left me. We must use a comma in this sentence. When a subordinating clause precedes a main clause in a sentence, which means when it comes before the main or independent clause, we use a comma. When life hands you lemons, make lemonade. We use commas to separate clauses that give extra information in a sentence. The bar, which I always go to with Josie, was packed last night. Note that the clause, which I always go to with Josie, is extra information because the sentence works without it. We can also say, the bar was packed last night. We use commas to separate items in a list, with the final two items generally being separated by the conjunctions and or. My favorite fruits are apples, bananas, cherries, and mangoes. Note that the final comma before and is sometimes not used. This comma is referred to as the Oxford comma. Both these sentences are correct. My new shoes are red, black, green, and blue. The final comma is optional. Some people prefer to only use it in order to avoid confusion. I personally recommend to you, my students, to always use the Oxford comma. That way, you can never go wrong. We use commas to separate a series of verbs or actions. The lion growled, ran, and pounced on the gazelle. Or we can use commas to separate a series of phrases. He kicked the ball. It flew into the air, spun over their heads, and landed on the roof of the house. Finally, we use commas before a name when we address someone. For example, come to my house, Jamie. Compare these two sentences. Let's eat, Claire. Let's eat, Claire. In the first sentence, we are suggesting eating Claire. Claire is the food. In the second sentence, we are telling Claire to eat. The meaning is completely changed by the use of a single comma. All right, let's practice full stops and commas. Add the correct punctuation to these sentences. We left, got in the car, and went home. In this sentence, we are missing 2 commas and a full stop. We left, got in the car, and went home. We separate these series of phrases with commas and end the sentence with a full stop. My mom and I love going to the mall. This sentence only requires a full stop at the end. The boy fell off his bike, hurt his knee, and started to cry. Here we are missing 2 commas and a full stop. Lori, who's my dad's friend, has helped me get a job. Who's my dad's friend is a relative clause. It gives extra information and is therefore put between 2 commas. She plays football, basketball, tennis, and badminton really well. Both these answers are correct. We can choose to use the final comma, also named the Oxford comma, or not, before the conjunction and. As I left the bar, I noticed someone had left their wallet. As I left the bar is a subordinate clause. Therefore, we need a comma after it as it comes at the beginning of a sentence. Great work! Next up, semicolons. A semicolon is between a comma and a full stop. We use it to join phrases and sentences that are related to each other without having to use a conjunction. I like this bar. The staff are so friendly. I take vitamins every day. I don't want to get sick. A semicolon can usually be replaced by a comma and a conjunction. For example, I drink coffee every day. I can't live without it. I drink coffee every day because I can't live without it. Both these sentences are correct and mean the same thing. It is simply a choice of style to use the semicolon or the conjunction because. Next, we have colons. We use colons to introduce lists. For example, for this workshop you'll need a sketchbook, watercolors, and 3 paintbrushes. We use colons to connect 2 independent clauses when the second clause gives extra information on the first one. I've always loved baking. I've been baking cakes, cookies, and pies since I was a child. We use colons for emphasis. She had worked her entire life to achieve one goal: become the best chef in London. Finally, we also use colons to divide the hour and minutes in writing the time. It's 4:15 p.m. Next, we have apostrophes, which are easy as we've studied its use in recent lessons. The most common use for apostrophes is for contractions. I don't know where the boat is. Don't is the contraction of do not and uses an apostrophe. They haven't got any news. The apostrophe is used to contract have and not. We also use apostrophes to indicate possession. Lola's cat is adorable. Question marks always come at the end of questions. Do you want to go to the movies? Have they heard Beyoncé's new song? In literature, it's common to see a question mark in the middle of a sentence when it is part of a dialogue. What does she want? Asked Julia. Next, we have exclamation marks. These are used to express surprise, frustration, or to emphasize a comment or short, sharp phrase, such as an interjection. I couldn't believe what she was wearing. Help! Be careful with exclamation marks, as they are often overused, especially in informal writing like on social media. It is typical to see sentences like, "Did you hear what he said? I can't believe it." In formal writing, exclamation marks should be used very, very occasionally and sparingly. Finally, we use quotation marks in direct speech or to repeat what someone has said, which is a grammar point we will be learning about in our next lesson, so sit tight. But here is a first look at this use of punctuation. "I can't wait for my vacation," said Sally. Notice how we use the quotation marks before the first word of the reported speech and after the comma at the end of the reported speech. We can also change the order of the clauses and therefore place the comma outside of the quotation marks. Sally said, "I can't wait for my vacation." Great work! Let's move on to practice. Which sentence is correct? Yesterday for lunch, I had a sandwich, chips, and an iced tea. The first sentence is correct. We can place a comma before the coordinating conjunction and, but never, ever after. The bartender was great. Her cocktails were delicious. The first sentence is correct. The phrase, "her cocktails were delicious," adds information to the first part of the sentence. Therefore, we separate them with a semicolon. For this class, you will need 3 books: The Bluest Eye, Death of a Salesman, and The Catcher in the Rye. The second sentence is correct. Before list, we use a colon and not a semicolon. I'm so excited for this trip. The first sentence is correct. We do not need a comma in this exclamation. Are you going to the market tomorrow? The second sentence is correct. This is a question, as indicated by the use of the auxiliary verb to be, conjugated as are, that is used before the pronoun you. Therefore, we need a question mark and not an exclamation mark. It's 3:30 p.m. The second sentence is correct. We use a colon to tell the time. Josie told me. It's a surprise. He doesn't know there's a party happening. The first sentence is correct. We use a comma to introduce a quotation. It is possible to introduce a speech using a colon, but in that case, we do not use quotation marks. I've only ever dreamt of one thing, moving to Paris. The first sentence is correct. We use the colon to emphasize the dream, which is moving to Paris. Are you going to Spain next week? The second sentence is correct. The auxiliary verb placed before the subject. Therefore, we need an exclamation mark. Fantastic! Now it's time for our task-based activity. Can you answer the questions based on these fun examples of why punctuation is so important? They are widely available in picture form on the internet, and I recommend going to find more at the end of this lesson. But for now, let's get started. How many people does the speaker want to thank? I want to thank my parents, Tiffany, and God. I want to thank my parents, Tiffany, and God. The first sentence indicates that the speaker has two parents that are called Tiffany and God. In the second sentence, the use of the second comma indicates that the speaker wants to thank four people: two parents, Tiffany, and God. Tiffany and God are separate people to the parents. How many things does the speaker find inspiration in? I find inspiration in cooking my family and my dog. I find inspiration in cooking, my family, and my dog. In the first sentence, the speaker finds inspiration in one thing: cooking their family and dog. This means that they actually cook their family. Their family and dog is being cooked. Whereas in the second sentence, by using commas, we separate the elements of cooking, family, and dog. Therefore, the speaker finds inspiration in these three separate things. What does the speaker love doing? In the first sentence, the speaker loves baking and is telling children that they do. In the second sentence, the speaker loves to bake the children. The children are being baked. What a difference in meaning, huh? Does the speaker want wine? No more wine. No, more wine. In the first sentence, the speaker does not want any more wine. In the second sentence, because no is separated by a comma, more wine is a sentence on its own. Therefore, the speaker is indicating that they do want more wine. They are asking for more wine. Is the speaker drinking beer? I'm giving up drinking beer for a month. I'm giving up drinking beer for a month. In the first sentence, the speaker continues to drink beer. The full stop separates these two ideas. The speaker is giving up. Therefore, the speaker is drinking beer for a month. In the second sentence, there is no punctuation separating these phrases. Therefore, the speaker is indicating that they are giving up drinking beer. That means they are stopping drinking beer. What does the panda do? A panda eats shoots and leaves. A panda eats, shoots, and leaves. In the first sentence, the panda eats two things, shoots and leaves, which are both parts of a plant. In the second sentence, a panda eats, then shoots, then leaves, as indicated by the speaker in the use of commas to separate all three actions. Shoots can also mean two things. Shoots in the first sentence is a noun to indicate part of a plant. Shoots in the second sentence is a verb, which means to pull from a gun. Therefore, the punctuation can indicate different meanings from just one word. How incredible is that? Well done! Let's move on to review. We use a full stop or period at the end of a sentence to indicate a finished idea or to break up a sentence. See you soon! Joe lived in California for 10 years. We use a comma to separate independent clauses, especially when they are joined with coordinating conjunctions like and, but, so, or, nor, yet, for. I brought my sister to this cafe and she loved it. We use a comma when a dependent or subordinating clause precedes a main clause in a sentence, which means when it comes before the main or independent clause. After he said goodbye, he went home. We use commas to separate clauses that give extra information in a sentence. Lucy, the girl I met last night at the party, is super friendly. We use commas to separate items, verbs, or a series of phrases in a list. The robber grabbed the money, shot his gun, and ran off toward his car. We use commas before a name when we address someone. Let's go to the mall, Paula. We use a semicolon to join phrases and sentences that are related to each other without having to use a conjunction. I'm surprised she moved to Germany. She seemed happy here. We use colons to introduce lists. You need 3 ingredients to make pancakes: eggs, milk, and flour. We also use colons for emphasis. She found out something horrible. Her husband was cheating on her. We use question marks at the end of a question. Have you been eating healthier? We use exclamation marks to express surprise, frustration, or short phrases. Wait! I can't go there without you. Great work today! We have completed our lesson on punctuation. Thank you for listening and participating, and I'll see you in our next video to talk about direct and indirect speech. See you then!